first is focusing on how can we get more people to figure out that we exist. So that's kind of like on
Mhm.
the growth side. And the other side is once they know we exist, how do we convert them into customers? So that's, just trying to figure out ways we can convert more of the visitors. So I focus on those two aspects.
Got it. And is your job heavily technical on the product side, or are you kind of more so on the business side of this role?
It's pretty technical because it is an SDK. A lot of our customers are engineers, so I'm on
Hmm.
calls with these engineers, doing demos, showing them how they can integrate it into their product. Um, and we have a documentation site, and for an SDK, the documentation is basically the UI because
Oh,
it's a bunch of code. So the only way you know how it works is kind of reading the documentation. So I actually maintain the documentation whenever there's
oh
updates to the
wow.
SDK. I have to make sure that they get documented and written in a way that engineers can understand with a lot of examples.
That's pretty cool. And for viewers who are curious, can you explain you said two key terms there, SDK and UI. What is that?
SDK it's a software development kit. Um, it's basically a bunch of here's another jargon APIs
Go
that
ahead. You can say APIs if
exists
you
that
want.
you can use. Um, so an API is basically if someone has code and they want someone else to use the code, they need to package it in a way that other people can use it. So they put it, let's say, the cloud, and then um, people who want to use it can get access it and then run the code in an abstracted way.
Awesome, awesome. And then you mentioned something about the UI, the user interface.
The
where
user
does it
interface.
yeah, where does it play a factor in the job?
Yeah, so if you work on any consumer product or a mobile app, there is like a UI there that you can click buttons, you can do things. But when the product is a bunch of code libraries, then the way you interact with these libraries is through documentation because you can figure out what exists, you can know how to write the code correctly so that you can tweak its parameters. Um, so the documentation is basically the UI for a kind of a SDK product.
That is pretty cool, and thank you for kind of giving the whole runaround explanation of all the technical terms. I appreciate it, right? Because sometimes I think half of the viewers I've realized are technical, half are non-technical, but they are interested in technology. So I appreciate you breaking it down in such a kind of straightforward way for our viewers. I want to ask another question about YC. So YC, Y Combinator, one of the best kind of accelerators in the Valley, in the Bay Area. Do you guys get to work specifically with like Gary Tan or Michael Seibel or any kind of these YC staff for just kind of consulting? How does it work?
Yeah, so the founder of the company did go through the YC program, and
Hmm.
I joined this company specifically because I wanted to see what the YC magic was.
Yeah,
So he has had meetings with Gary Tan. He told me like he had a meeting with Gary Tan. He went
that's
there
so
and he came
cool.
back and said, and the Gary Tan was like, you need to 10x your prices or it's not going to work. And then we added a zero and people kept paying. So I guess his
Wow.
advice did did make sense.
That's so cool. I actually watch a ton of Gary Tan on YouTube. Kind of he's like one of the reasons I got into YouTube just because I feel like I had similar background to him growing up, like kind of first gen, trying to figure it out.
Mhm.
And then Michael Seibel, I watched a lot of Michael Seibel because I watched Justin Kahn, and I think they both built Twitch together. So I started
Mhm.
kind of geeking out on them, and then there when during kind of like earlier, I guess during COVID, I was kind of like lost and like, should I get good at coding? So I started trying to email Michael Seibel if he'd like reach back out to me. Never emailed
Oh
back,
wow.
but I was like, oh, I feel like he'd say yes.